And welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. And as you can hear, one of us has gotten their shit together. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram at CBCaps. And the sound effects you are hearing are provided by none other than our man in Brooklyn. One agent underscore 70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
We are back, still in quarantine.
We are indeed, yes, and we apparently may end up having some new books in probably another week or two, from what it sounds like, which I'm slightly bummed about. But nevertheless, we will get to that when we talk about the news. Not with us tonight, PCN underscore dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all his umbrella sites therein. Also, the Vine Alternative Byte, BYTE, under the name Comic Reviews No Vowels. Also not with us tonight is the Osiris of this ish. One Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter. That is the that's the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. Also, the KLIQ Nation on Twitter, thekliqnation.com. That's DKLIQNATION. Also, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And you can find this here program on the Coast of the Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this program at your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Coast of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. Yeah, guess what, folks? You know what? I forgot to ask what we were gonna do. We're gonna do. You know what? Audible. We're gonna do news first, and then we'll hit Annihilation.
Which
Is
problem.
the topic of tonight.
It's all good.
And while I sit here and you know what, I will do this in a second because I forgot to do the tweet. But that's fine. We're gonna work this out. So let's get into the news.
All right, here we go into the news.
And we start off, as we tend to do about this time, with the cinematic news. Starting off, James Gunn shares details about his insane Spy vs. Spy script. So apparently not only did he have a Scooby-Doo script somewhere in his pocket, he had a Spy vs. Spy one. And apparently not only that, I guess there's a Spy vs. Spy movie that is actually in production, sounds like. And that this is the reason why he decided to share this his script idea. So yeah, Gunn's revelation came after screenwriter and author Brian Lynch retweeted a post about the director Rawson Marshall Thurber possibly directing a new Spy vs. Spy film. Okay, Lynch mentioned an old screenplay from 1999 where Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans were supposed to play the spies. If you know anything about Spy vs. Spy, that little notion right there in itself is kind of amusing, sort of. Anyway, I believe I wrote that screenplay. Gunn wrote on Twitter. J. Roach was attached to direct. I wrote it more thinking Nick Cage and Eddie Murphy, which that's another pairing. Never heard of this pairing. I guess he's talking about the Jim Carrey Damon Wayans one. Script was outrageous and never made, but it's what got me most of the studio work that followed, and why the Warners asked me to do Scooby-Doo. So there you go. So I guess in his transition from his previous directing career to directing Hollywood films, this is the road he went down. Next up,
Hey, you got to pay those bills.
word.
All right, next up, professional wrestler and current WWE Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch, real name Rebecca Quinn, has reportedly boarded an upcoming Marvel movie. This report comes courtesy of Chris Tapley, a former Variety reporter and the host of Netflix's The Call Sheet podcast. On Twitter, Tapley quote tweeted a promotional video announcing that Lynch had joined the cast of the Showtime drama series Billions. That's something that I've been meaning to add to my binge watch list. Wrote Tapley, Becky Lynch, grabbing Hollywood's eye, psst, in parentheses, she's also in a certain upcoming Marvel movie. So that's an interesting bit of news.
Yeah, if it indeed has some legs, it absolutely is. Which, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I legit wouldn't. So we'll see if that actually pans out. Next up, Amazon removes New Mutants pre-order option in the U.S. So apparently, the original story was that the New Mutants was available for pre-order on Amazon, and for those who wanted a copy of the film, can purchase it in HD or SD. But apparently, it's no longer on order in Amazon. Excuse me, in on Amazon in the U.S., but it's still on pre-order in the U.K. According to this article. So it says the online retailer cited its agreement with the content provider as the reason for the removal. So it's a content rights thing. Sounds like.
Okay.
Which we haven't even seen that movie in theaters, and so the fact that was already still going on was kind of amusing.
Absolutely.
Next.
All right, we were moving on.
Yep.
All right, next up. Um, so although New Mutants the movie has faced a slew of delays and still has no new release date, it hasn't stopped the last of Fox's X-Men movies from continuing its marketing campaign. New images from the movie show off visual effects and a closer look at the villainous Demon Bear in the latest issue of Cineflex magazine. So, for folks who subscribe to that or are able to get that digitally, take a look. That's where you can find some of these images.
Yeah. Which actually brings up, I guess, I wonder if we're gonna have time to actually read New Mutants or Demon Bear before we get new comic books again. But we'll worry about that.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll worry about that.
I mean, what I was going to say is if we choose to, we can because it's just the one. Uh, I guess what you would want to do is cover the original graphic novel and then maybe the first. I got you. I got you. All right. That's interesting. That's an interesting talk about behind the scenes conversations here on the show, folks. We're trying to figure out what we're going to be doing as topics before we start getting new books back in. So stay tuned for further developments.
Yeah, and maybe possibly a way to fold us still continue to do the stuff even when new comics come in. But that's logistics we'll have to work out at some point. Until then, we're moving on to Marvel Studios developing an this is a report that Marvel Studios is developing an Ironheart Disney Plus series. And I personally would welcome that if that's the case. A new report states that Marvel Studios is developing a Disney Plus series starring Ironheart, who at one time replaced Iron Man in the comics. According to the Cinema Spot, Marvel Studios has not attached a showrunner to the project, though the studio has been accepting pitches. The site reports a target date for shooting is expected to fall sometime next year, though that can change with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic disrupting the entertainment industry. There you go. Next.
Yeah. Oh, and some sad news, and this is awful. ABC revealed that Marvel TV art director Matteo DeCosmo has died from complications arising from the coronavirus. The prolific art director passed away on April 21st in New York City though his death was only formally announced on May 1st. He was only 52 years old. Before the Hollywood shutdown, DeCosmo had worked on the Delroy Lindo-led drama pilot Harlem's Kitchen for ABC. DeCosmo was also known for his work on many Marvel television series, such as Luke Cage and The Punisher. Other television shows he worked on included Emergence, The Affair, Madam Secretary, and Wu-Tang and American Saga. In addition to television, he worked on feature films such as the Oscar-nominated Precious, A Lottery Ticket, and 21 Bridges. Ugh, that's awful, awful news.
Yeah, condolences to his friends and family. Next up, there's a new Star Wars movie coming from Taika Waititi. It seems.
Wait, hold on.
So yeah, it seems that the rumors that we heard and have reported here are actually true. Taika Waititi, director of Thor Ragnarok, y'all know this, and Jojo Rabbit, and of course the work he did on The Mandalorian, will direct and co-write a new Star Wars movie for theatrical release. Lucasfilm announced Monday. Waititi will co-write with Academy Award nominee Christy Wilson Carnes. 1917, Last Night in Soho, who received the BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Film of the Year for 1917. So yeah, there you go. And as the aforementioned Thor, Love and Thunder, and Mandalore is the stuff that YTD is working on right now. So cool.
Right. Cool is that I don't know if you have something in the news about that that new Mandalorian documentary.
Oh, I don't believe I do. No, but
right. A quick heads up then, for the listeners and the viewers out there. Disney Plus has a Mandalorian documentary that's coming out, I guess, once a week, and the first one involves the directors that were assembled, Avenger style, by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to work on the Mandalorian, and it's so cool to hear Taika Waititi interact, like in a roundtable discussion with these directors as well.
Yeah, I've got something that'll probably mention it, but it doesn't necessarily go into it. And yeah, just to finish this off.
About talk about maybe? Oh no.
No, the next one will probably mention something about it, but I don't think so. Disney didn't specify a release date for the movie. That's pretty much the only other takeaway from this thing. So we'll see how that works. Next up,
May 4th. Is known around the world as Star Wars Day, and this year Disney Plus celebrated May the 4th by giving the streaming service a Star Wars makeover. So, they released The Rise of Skywalker on earlier than anticipated, in time for May the 4th, and what I was referring to earlier, this documentary regarding the Mandalorian, was also released on May the 4th. Mm-hmm. And the final episode of Clone Wars was released on May the 4th. And I watched 2 of the 3. I did not watch Rise of Skywalker. Seen it in the theaters. I will get around to watching it again at some point.
Yeah. For May the 4th, I had plans to do some stuff, and I didn't necessarily do that. I did, however, watch the bulk, actually all of J.D. Tartakovsky's Clone Wars series.
Okay.
Yeah, this continues to be good stuff, even though it's not technically not canon anymore, which it should be, because it doesn't make sense that it's not, because you get introduced to people that show up in the Clone Wars proper.
Mm-hmm.
And that did not get an introduction there, so it's kind of weird. But regardless, yeah, and that stuff is still, that they did for the Disney Plus site, is still up. Like, you see some good Ralph McQuarrie art for some of the images that they have up. If you're watching the video, you can see some of them right now as I scroll through them. But yeah, like it's still up. And you have Disney Plus, you can go check it out. It's still up there.
Right.
Next up. Oh, go ahead.
And I was just going to add as a quick note, both Roddykat and myself are rocking Star Wars themed virtual backgrounds. I am in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, And Roddykat is in the middle of hyperspace.
Yep. And that could potentially change in the midst of this program, so stay tuned, folks.
Exactly.
Next up, Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Sam Witwer calls Luke and Ahsoka the best Jedi. So, if you don't know the name Sam Witwer, he played Darth Maul in the Clone Wars. So he was doing a live stream, which he also live streams on Twitch every now and then, also. So that's a treat. But during this live stream, Sam Witwer expounded on why he feels that Luke Skywalker is the best Jedi, and Ahsoka shares his best traits. And like I said, I've already went through who he has played. Not to go too far into this, but let's see, he says when it comes to Luke Skywalker, I've said this a million times, but Luke is the best character because y'all have to forgive me right now. I'm trying to. The best Jedi is because he doesn't flip his heart. He doesn't flip his lightsaber as fast. He doesn't pull down Star Destroyers out of the sky. He makes the moral decision. That's why he's the best Jedi. And then he goes on to compare Luke to Ahsoka by saying Ahsoka Tano is very similar in that way. You know she came from, and that's the way, in her own way, humble beginnings. He continued, when you watch that first Clone Wars thing and she comes off the transport, she's a child, she's a little kid, she has a lot to learn, and she had this great big heart, but impatience, and she was cocky and all that stuff. We got to take that journey with her, and I love that. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I am an Ahsoka Tano convert.
Mm.
And, because I am, and fans of the show will know, I am not going to lie, I am a late convert to Clone Wars. I remember when Roddykat and Tim Dog 98 would talk about it on the show, and I'd be like, what? What is this show that I have to try to catch up on when it was on Disney XD? But now, thanks to Disney Plus and several not so direct ways of watching these things online, let's say, I've been able to watch the entirety of Clone Wars and Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely say that I'm a convert to being an Ahsoka Tano fan. And I will tell you that before we move on to the next story, that I looked online for Ahsoka Tano action figures, the Star Wars Black Series, and they've all gone up in price because people are snapping them up.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being the case, we'll move on to, what's next? President Bartlett.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. Yeah, it's like it took a second. I mean, obviously, because I think they intentionally kind of came off like, yeah, she's a lot like Anakin when she first came in, or early Anakin, but then some of that's but she was a little earlier, a little older than that. But yeah, she's one of my favorite characters and has been for a good minute. So I do love me some Ahsoka. I think I have the figure you're talking about.
I was about to say she definitely grew on me. No, there's two black Star Wars Black figures. There's a young Ahsoka and an older Ahsoka with the white lightsabers.
Right, that's the one I think I need to get. But yeah, I got the first one. So
gotcha. I was about to say they're both on the expensive side now. Kind of annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next up, as President Bartlett said, Netflix orders another Extraction movie, giving Chris Hemsworth technically a second comic book film franchise. Now, I watched this Extraction movie on Netflix. It's pretty good. It's got a lot of action in it. Have you watched it?
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, yeah. Because when we talked about it last week, whatever it was, yeah, I had already watched it.
Right. It was actually really good. I was really pleasantly surprised by it. But it's got quality people behind it. It features a South Asian cast of characters with Chris Hemsworth thrown in. And it's actually a story that is based on a book from Oni Press called Ciudad. And that's where the comic book franchise technically is being drawn from. So that's pretty cool. Joe Russo himself is returning to write the sequel after adapting the first film from the book. The deal is closed for Joe Russo to write Extraction 2, and he is in the formative stages of what the story can be, Russo told Deadline. They're not committing yet to whether that story goes forward or backward in time. They left a big loose ending that leaves question marks for the audience. That's cool.
That's actually kind of true because there was a point where it didn't seem like it was. Even though when that part, and the part I'm talking about, was that part that seems like, well, they're not doing this anymore of this. But I thought to myself, like, no, there's definitely going to be a number or two coming up. And I was talking to somebody I was watching it with at the time, was like, yeah, they're definitely setting up for. I was jokingly saying that they were going to set up for a two. And while they didn't necessarily do that, they did kind of leave the door open for it.
Yes.
At the
Yeah,
with
the
that
door
ending.
is definitely still left open.
So I was like, yeah, I was right. Great. So yeah, the Russos are behind this. Chris Hemsworth, even one David Harbour shows up, which is Red Guardian, and also Stranger
Yeah, I was
Things.
gonna say it's Hellboy.
Yeah.
The Hellboy that we refuse to acknowledge.
Oh yeah, that's the thing that happened already.
Yeah,
So
the Hellboy that we refuse to acknowledge, as Roddykat said, he is the sheriff. I forget his name from Stranger Things, and Red Guardian from the Black Widow movie. We are still waiting to see.
Yep. So yeah, but yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check out Extraction and you're like action flick fan, check it out. It's pretty good. Next up, Borderlands movie. Kate Blanchett in talks to star as Lilith, and I'm sure Agent 70 will have a sound effect.
Oh, you mean
Who?
Exactly.
I mean not Kate Blanchett,
Yes.
not Kate Blanchett. What I was going to comment was, I swear she's probably overqualified for this movie.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, just because it's a video game, a video game based movie, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think I would have never thought about who would play. So I'm a fan of the Borderlands series, and I know that character well enough. So I'm like, that's an interesting call. But if you see her coming off of Hella, sure, I very much see it.
Right.
But yeah, so
That's what I suspect. That's what I suspected when you went into that description. I was like, you know what? It probably is coming off of Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm. So it's a good call if that goes out. And apparently the movie was announced in February 2020, which I don't remember, and with Eli Roth directing, which I guess that one also makes sense. To produce also along Evie and R. Arad. Of some of you who know of Marvel Television who know those one or two of those names. And of course, Randy Pitchford and Take Two Interactive is executive producing the movie because it's their property. So yeah, and it looks like Chernobyl's creator Greg Mazin is penning the screenplay. So yeah, if that all comes together and Kate Ventures involved, I'm kind of with it. I have to still see what the rest of the class is going to look like, but hey, I'm so far interested. Next up.
All right. HBO Max will be free for Hulu subscribers with the HBO add-on. So those who subscribe to HBO through Hulu will receive an upgrade to HBO Max when the highly anticipated streaming service, that's me editorializing, streaming service launches later this month free of charge. I subscribe to HBO. Will I be getting HBO Max? I think so.
Probably so. More than likely. Yeah. Yeah, I have Hulu. I don't have the HBO add-on, and I'm kind of wondering if it's even worth it. I mean, it is kind of, but at the same time, I'm like, that we'll see. That's neither here nor there. But hey, for those of you who have that, go for it. Stop it. Jeez, auto-playing stupidity. To land the Catwoman role in Dark Knight Rises, Anne Hathaway dressed as a very different character. So it appears that Anne Hathaway, in her audition to Dark Knight Rises, went into the audition as not Catwoman, but one Harley freaking Quinn. Well, it says here that the actress tried her hardest to channel Harley in an audition that ended up being for Catwoman. And it says here, I came in and I had this lovely Vivian Westwood kind of thing, but mad tailoring top with stripes going everywhere. Hathaway said in an interview, and I wore these flat, jokery looking shoes, and I was trying to give Chris these crazy little smiles. It was only after an hour that Nolan revealed that he was casting for Catwoman, calling for Hathaway to make an abrupt change to her mannerisms while dressed to evoke a completely different character. It says, about an hour into the meeting, he said, "Well, I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but it's Catwoman. I was shifting into a different, and I was shifting into a different gear. Now, okay, we're Slinky, and I hate my shirt. I love my shirt, but I hate it right now. We're Slinky. So, yeah,
I was about to say she got that wrong. The Slinky commercial used to go, "Slinky, it's Slinky, it's such a wonderful toy."
yeah, no." To which
Oh no.
I don't know. I think about her portrayal of Catwoman, and it was alright. You know, it was a little because obviously most people at the time kind of know her from like Princess Diaries and other stuff, and I know at that point she had done a role or two that was a little, a little out of quote unquote
Right.
boundary from what she had done previously.
Or
So
risque. Yeah.
yes, so she was basically trying to transition out of that old stuff into the new, showing she's got range. So. But yeah,
Yeah.
but it worked out for her anyway. So and there you go.
All right.
Next
up. Legends of Tomorrow's Gary Green reacts to that doggy surprise. So apparently this is a spoiler. I'll ring the bell. I mean, I don't watch this, but rest in peace, Gary Jr. We hardly knew you. In Shipbroken, the latest episode of DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Gary Green picked up an emotional support dog from hell. Of course, the dog just so happened to belong to Son of Sam, and even talked the notorious serial killer into committing some of his most heinous crimes. Thankfully, John Constantine was able to banish him back to hell, but Gary hasn't given up on emotional support animals. He even got himself a new rabbit he calls Gary Jr., and it was like he may have a bit more luck this time around. Okay.
I don't know who this person is actually. So weird. But okay. Great. Next up, the CW finalizes 2020 Arrowverse season finale dates. Ooh, excuse me. The CW has officially announced the 2020 season finale dates for its Arrowverse lineup of TV shows. That would be Batwoman, Supergirl, The Flash, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. The network also included the season finale dates of Riverdale Charmed, Katie King, Roswell, New Mexico, Nancy Drew, and Dynasty. Wow, wait, Dynasty is? Okay, anyway. They had to alter the dates because of COVID-19, so there you go. And it looks as though The Flash will end on May 12th. Batwoman and Supergirl on Sunday, May 17th, and Legends of Tomorrow ends on June the 2nd. If you are keeping score. Next.
In an interesting development, in a promo for this past week's episode of the CW's Batwoman, entitled "If You Believe in Me, I'll Believe in You," it finally saw Gabriel Mann's Tommy Elliott suit up as the infamous Batman villain known simply as Hush. Batwoman has teased Hush's arrival since very early on, with the character of Tommy Elliott being introduced all the way back in the series' third episode. So the viewers caught a glimpse of the Hush costume in last week's 17th episode, and the promo now shows Tommy putting on his comic book counterpart's iconic coat and bandage-style mask to wreak havoc on Gotham City, with the local media giving him the nickname of Hush. Okay.
Cool. Moving right along. A new Superman, Lex Lois, cast for Man of Tomorrow animated film. Darren Criss, Zachary Quinto, and Alexandria Daddario will voice the lead characters in an all-new Superman film for Warner Brothers Animation. First reported by Entertainment Weekly, Superman, Man of Tomorrow will be a Year One style take on a familiar mythos, with Clark Kent working as an intern for the Daily Planet while learning how to be a hero as Superman outside of that.
Interesting.
So,
I just wanted to add as a quick note to this that despite my now lapsed guest membership for DC Universe, I was able to watch that Justice League Dark movie that basically puts a capper on the most recent era of DC animated movies.
mm-hmm.
So I guess this is DC Animated's first foray into a new direction.
Right, like they did before with when they brought Flashpoint in. So
Right.
this is basically their third act, I guess. One would say.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. Next up, I was about to say, do you have something else to add?
Nope.
Okay. Next up, Sylvester Stallone revealed that Demolition Man 2, oh God, is in the works at Warner Brothers. So if you've been hoping for a sequel to Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes' 1993 action thriller Demolition Man, guess what? The sequel is in the works. On Instagram, Stallone himself revealed the news that he's working on it right now over at Warner Brothers. While answering some questions from fans, he was asked about the potential future of Demolition Man, and that was when he surprisingly dropped the news on Demolition Man 2, saying, I think there is. We're working on it. Wait. I think there is. We're working on it right now with Warner Brothers. It is looking fantastic. So that should come out. That's going to happen.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing that's happening. 50 years
goodness
later.
gracious, man. Goodness gracious.
I mean, come on. It's not that big of a surprise, is it? Like they've been remaking and putting and sequels to stuff that didn't probably necessarily need it for a while now. So why not Demolition Man? It's in its prescience.
I've never watched it.
Really?
Yeah, never watched.
I mean, you should, for lack of a
Is it-
better word, treat yourself.
Ha!
It's actually not a. I mean, obviously it's 1993, and it's there's some B movie standards probably, but it's not a bad film. It's not that bad.
Okay.
You know.
Oh.
At this point, it was probably a little bit more cheesy than it was originally intended, but and it
Probably
was cheesy then.
unintentional comedy moments in there.
It was quite cheesy then, so yeah.
Gotcha.
Next up, NBC's The Blacklist to use comic book style animation to conclude season. Production on the 7th season of NBC's The Blacklist was suspended due to coronavirus, but Sony Pictures TV has figured out how to complete an episode to serve as the season finale. They used quote-unquote graphic novel style animation to complete the story. Season 7's 19th episode, the Kajnian brothers was halted mid-principal production in New York, where almost all TV production shut down due to COVID-19. Animation will be added to the already filmed live-action scenes to complete the story. So there you go. Now, I mean, if you are a Doctor Who fan, especially a deep classic one, you will know that something like this has happened before. Like they have taken old scripts and old, almostly completed, vocal work and added them to animation and basically have made full episodes of it, or full and or half episodes of it. So, this is probably the first time in the current, production that they've done this, as far as I know. So cool. Next.
Spring is here, and
Alright.
so are
Okay.
the
Next up, Funimation has teamed up with NIS America to add more new and classic anime series to its streaming library, including classic series Cardcaptor Sakura.
Who?
5 new series will be streaming from May 5th, while another 14 will be available soon. Funimation's anime streaming library already boasts over 700 titles, including shows like My Hero Academia, Dr. Stone, and classics like Fruits Basket and One Piece.
Who?
I hear good things about Dr. Stone and obviously My Hero, which you might like. I don't know. I've only seen a couple episodes, but yeah, check it out if you're a part of that streaming service. And that concludes the cinematic portion of the news. We will transition over into the comic book news, with DC renews Mike Perkins' exclusive deal for 3 more years. Lois Lane artist Mike Perkins has signed a new 3-year exclusive contract with DC, a renewal from his original 2-year deal from the publisher from 2018. He says, today is the first day of my new 3-year contract with DC Comics, Perkins wrote on Facebook. I've already started on my next book, and it's something I've been hoping for from before I even became a professional. So, good on him.
All right, next up, classic Green Lantern creative duo Ron Martz and Daryl Banks are returning to shine the green light on Kyle Rayner's rookie year, like a Kyle Rayner year one. It's been 26 years since Kyle Rayner donned the Green Lantern mantle for the first time, and for thousands of fans, he remains their Green Lantern. I guess I'm 1001. Kyle's rookie year as DC's Emerald Guardian was helmed by writer Ron Martz, then a new face at DC, and artists with the likes of Daryl Banks, Direct Donovan, Nay O'Coin, Jamal Eigel, and legendary inker Romeo Tongal. Shout out to Romeo Tongal, who used to ink George Perez on the new Teen Titans. For the first 12 issues of Kyle stepping into Hal Jordan's boots, he went through an incredible trial by fire with the infamous murder, the refrigerator, of his girlfriend Alex DeWitt, almost being killed himself by Mongol, as well as taking on his power-obsessed predecessor. So that's interesting that they're going to revisit this, and I'm glad to see Daryl Banks back in the mainstream fold.
Yeah, I think I do remember reading the infamous refrigeration
Yeah,
thing
me too.
after finding out what that was about. I'm like, okay, this is
I was about to say one of my suite mates in college was a big DC guy, so I read his stuff. That's how a little bit of behind the scenes, folks. We've been trying to figure out what to cover during the course of quarantine before we get new books.
mhm.
And I happened to mention that I was reading Electric Blue Superman in real time, and it's because of one of my suite mates in college being a DC guy. So I read his stuff, he read my Marvel stuff. That's how we covered the gamut of the mainstream comics
Right.
every week.
Yeah, and given the way things are, we may or may not, because we were just starting off doing comic events. We thought about doing like first arcs of stuff and introductions, this, that, and others.
May still,
We
we
may
don't
still,
know. A
yeah,
lot of the stuff is going to be in our pockets
yes,
for show ideas, because let's not pretend that we may see additional periods when we can't get comics in the near future. So
yeah. Or even when we do, like I said earlier, we will try to see if we can work some more in if people want them, or sometimes if people don't, you know.
there
Anyway,
you
next
go.
up. DC welcomes a new costume hero in Batman and the Outsiders number 12. Um, Actually, I'm not sure. Wait, did it actually come out? I feel like this is here because it came out, but I know there are some
It did,
books.
it did come out. Yeah, the only books that haven't come out that they haven't really talked about in DC are the main Batman and Superman books.
Hmm.
Uh, Batman and the Outsiders, I believe, was released last week. What was it this week? I forget.
Right.
Uh, I'm gonna look. No, I think it was last week, because I think this week was the Flash came out, was like the main new book.
Hmm.
Now I'm gonna check this out in the meantime. But yeah, I
It
believe
says,
that
yeah,
was
you're right.
released.
It came out this week.
Was it this week?
Yeah, because yeah, I scrolled down to the bottom. It says it came out this week.
Okay.
Yeah. So we won't go too far into this because I'm sure the majority of people have not been able to check this out. But if you caught me scrolling through the article, you may already know.
Right. Okay.
Next up.
In some other uh, news from a book that came out this week, Wonder Woman Agent of Peace #3. Apparently, Diana and Steve Trevor are fishing on a lake, and there's a preview of it available at Newsarama. So
Hmm.
have fun going there.
Yeah, if you want, you can definitely check that out if you want to. It's a preview. It's not shouldn't be spoiling that much.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, I said earlier we weren't doing this, but apparently here we are. Deathstroke joins the DCAU with Batman: The Adventure Continues #3. And there is some preview pages on Newsarama for that, and which is also available now digitally. So if you
Okay.
did not know, Batman: The Adventure Continues is based in the world of Batman the animated series, just in comic book form.
All right. Next up, Greg Capullo is hard at work on Dark Knight's Death Metal, and he's posted penciled art of Jonah Hex's unforgettable disfigured face to announce his inclusion. Death Metal #3 is underway. Capullo tweeted, along with a close crop of Jonah Hex's face. Wonderful.
There you go. Yeah, and if you're watching the video, you can see the post of that. Let's see. DC Image and more part of Diamond's revised May 20th release schedule. Diamond Comic Distributors has provided retailers a revised, finalized list of titles planned to ship for a Wednesday, May 20th on sale, their target date, quote unquote, to resume its distribution services following its coronavirus shutdown. This supersedes a previous list released on April 28th, which, amongst other things, included Marvel titles. Marvel subsequently announced plans to, which we'll get to. Actually, I'll just go ahead and. Well, that's in a couple of things. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But, yeah, there's that. So, there's a revised list. We may be getting new comics on the 20th if all continues to go according to their plan. Next.
All right. In just a bit of symmetry, I don't know why I hear.
Say again?
Check. No, I was about to say I can hear my voice awful.
I'm not sure.
It's weird. So let me just move on. In a weird bit of symmetry, now it's gone. DC Diamond exclusive era appears to end 25 years to the day it began. So DC's exclusive agreement with Diamond Comic Distributors appears to be functionally at an end, although neither party is saying that directly out loud, exactly 25 years from the day the agreement was first announced. As noted by Comic-Con this week, not Comic Book Chronicles, DC Diamond jointly announced their initial industry-rattling, lawsuit-inducing agreement on April 28th, 1995, 25 years to the day before DC began shipping new product through new direct market distributors Lunar and UCS. That is symmetry for you folks.
Yup. And moving right along, DC's just kind of going over some stuff that we've already talked about. But DC's revised June 2020 schedule includes DC's Dead Planet. Oh Lord, why I cannot speak tonight? What is going on? DC's Dead Planet, Catwoman, Joker, and Green Lantern specials, and more. So DC has rolled out their revised June 2020 release schedule, including the new release date for their summer event, Dark Knight Start Death Metal. The major issues in this new schedule, besides Death Metal, is the twice monthly Batman returning, as well as their anniversary anthologies for the Joker, Catwoman, and Green Lantern. In addition, the scheduling of Deceased Death Planet #1, originally solicited for June 10th, now scheduled for June 30th, infers that DC may soon have to solicit new titles for July and August shipping. So yeah, there's got a lot of shuffling that's going to be done between now and June. Next up.
Absolutely. Diamond has announced plans to release revised solicitations for upcoming comic books and other products in a new May-June edition of their usually monthly previews catalog to arrive on May 27th. Traditionally, publishers share those solicitations early with press and readers. The distributor has confirmed that products contained in the new catalog will be targeted for August 2020 on-sale dates. So this is citing production delays created by the COVID-19 outbreak. This issue will include all items originally intended for May solicitation plus new items solicited in June. All items in the catalog will carry item codes with a June 20 prefix. Okay. Those are for you pre-order folks out there, myself included.
Yeah. Oh, why? Hello? What is going on here? There we go. Next up, Dan Slott is exiting Iron Man. Writer Dan Slott has announced that the end of the current Iron Man 2020 event series will be the end of Slott's run with the character completely. The event series was Jesus Christ. Sorry, folks. That event series was postponed after issue 3 due to coronavirus pandemic effects on the direct market's primary distributor, Diamond. That's a wrap on my 25th and final Iron Man plot, Slot says, which was always the plan. From day one, it was all about building to a big Iron Man 2020 story in 2020. What a trip it's been with so many talented co-creators and the best editorial team in comics. Can't wait for you to see it. And Slott later corrected himself by saying 23 plots and not 25 because Gail Simone wrote 2 issues of Tony Stark Iron Man run, in addition to other writers also chipping in to co-write the series with Slott.
Right.
So, there you go. Next.
All right, Marvel Comics has outlined its plans to resume shipping weekly comic books following the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Marvel is going to begin releasing new titles starting May 27th with what it calls a balanced release schedule aimed at publishing comic books in the most thoughtful way we can for fans, creators, and the industry during these unpredictable times. The way, I don't know if we have another... Oh, yeah, the next story, you can kind of explain some of the strategy.
Yep, and that story is inside Marvel's reasoning for measured release schedule, their plans afterwards. So this is from Newsarama. 7 days after Diamond confirmed plans to resume distribution operations for May 20th, Marvel Comics has released amended plans for its releases for the next 2 months, given the relatively slim schedule and the complete absence of some titles. People have questions, of course. We do, and we're sure that you do as well. This is from the editorializing from the article writer. The publisher is now beginning to explain its strategy in an extended letter to retailers sent out Friday afternoon, and goes slightly as thus. As Diamond continues its efforts to reopen distribution for the retailer community, Marvel will be gradually releasing print, comics, and trade collections on an alternating weekly schedule starting May 27th, the letter reads. This balanced short-term schedule will allow everyone, industry partners, comic shops, Marvel, and our fans to work through an incredible amount of change at every level while providing new product to purchase and giving retailers a clear plan to adjust their weekly FOC, final order cutoff orders. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. It also says here, let's see, starting July 15th, Marvel will resume weekly releases for new comic book titles and trade collections not previously FOC'd in the most thoughtful way we can, taking in all factors throughout the industry. The letter continues. Marvel will release more information on these titles at later date. So, yeah. So basically, if y'all don't know, the final order cutoff is the deadline for comic book shops to order books. And therefore order books to have them get in. And it's usually, according to this article, it's like 3 weeks out, which makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. That is pretty much that. And I guess go into the next article.
Right. So this is all, over the course of the last week, we've gotten a lot of news and updates and revisions to the release schedule and some insight into the release schedule that Marvel and Diamond have come up with as the big kid on the block. So with Diamond's direct market distribution seemingly back up and running, Marvel Comics released the revised schedule for its comic book releases from May 27th through July 8th. And although 26 titles are listed, there are a lot of issues not on their schedule. Specifically, here are some titles that I pulled that you won't be seeing for at least the next 2 months and possibly more. They include X-Men, Captain America, Fantastic Four, Wolverine, Spider-Woman, Gwen Stacy, Conan the Barbarian. That's the first book I'm not pulling. And Star Wars are the highest profile ongoing titles that are missing in action for the time being. That's a big chunk of my reading list.
Yeah, partially here too, specifically with the X-Men and Star Wars stuff. Well, Fantastic Four, I've been reading that also, but I've not been. Some of those I haven't necessarily been pulling, and that Spider Woman is a new series, so I guess that one kind of makes sense. Oh, and that Green Safety one was the one we have talked about before everything went down, or right before everything went down. Also, notably missing is the Champions Power Pack and New Warriors series, and I know Matt Wang, I'm sure, is quite unhappy about that because that is also a part of the Outlawed event that
It just started.
pretty much, yeah. And also for some folks, Runaway and Ghost Spider, the aforementioned Ghost Spider, and I guess, yeah, there's a whole list of stuff. There's a couple of things that I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in. In fact, yeah, there's a few on the rest of this on my reading list that's been affected. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. Trying to work that out. So basically, it's like have my Marvel reading list is kind of on this list. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But speaking of, Marvel is making 7 existing titles and 1 new title launch digital only.
Okay, get into this one, and then there's a bit of a disappointment here for me.
Okay, so while they imprint digital comics will resume from Marvel on May 27th, the publisher has announced the plans for some of its titles to switch to digital only starting May 13th via Marvel Digital and Comixology. 7 current titles, as well as 1 upcoming new launch title, will go on digital first for serialization, with Marvel planning to compile the digital editions into print collections later, which is not the first time this is happening, but because of the way things are, it is what it is. The 8 titles going are Ghost Spider,
Boo!
I'm dying!
the Ant-Man limited series, which we had started already. Avengers of the Wasteland, another one. Ravencroft. Star. That's right. Oh yeah, I forgot that was already out. Yeah.
That Captain Marvel villain who now has
Right.
I think the reality gem.
Right. Marvel's Power Girl. Got it. Marvel Spider-Man: The Black Cat Strikes. Hawkeye Freefall, which should be in about the end, and 2020 Ironheart rounds out that list.
Right, that really sucks.
Mm.
I mean, I never realized that Ghost Spider was on that level of sales, because honestly, I think this is what is determining these particular books going digital first.
Yeah.
So, without obviously, this is just conjecture. This is without me going to the sales charts and consulting them to see if these are in fact that low on the sales chart, but I suspect that they are. So, as I said, I'm disappointed that Ghost Spider finds itself a book. It finds itself amongst these titles. So,
Yeah, I mean, and it might not be low sales, but low confidence by the publisher, which is still disappointing.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, because like most of the stuff is like miniseries and you know of the like. So for the fact that Ghost Spider's in there amongst all of this is kind of weird. Kind of weird.
Not good.
Yeah. Magneto fan comic artist puts on armor for new X-Men tale. So artist Sachi Edewira, my apologies for if I messed up your name, who previously created a heartfelt Magneto fan comic, is back with a new story to fill in the gap of X-Men comics while Marvel Comics' publishing line is on hold due to coronavirus for a few more weeks. And then I think Francesco Francavilla has also been doing something similar with some stuff. Just got like creative, just one-off panels and stories of stuff that they're doing.
Mhm.
But you can see the Twitter post from the artist here. You know, looks like it's starring Armor from the X-Men. There's not really much else about it. But you can go check that out. If you're watching the video, you can see go to Wrote 345 Art on Twitter and go check that out.
Next up, StarWars.com and This Week in Star Wars excitedly announced that Dr. Aphra, an audiobook original, is coming out. It's an expanded adaptation of the kind of good, kind of bad archaeologist's introduction in Marvel's Darth Vader series. The first volume, that is. In the story, Aphra makes a deal with the Sith Lord, which is never a good idea, and begins a memorable misadventure. So that's pretty cool that's coming out. I don't. Does the story say when that's coming out?
Yeah, July 21st.
Thank you, July 21st.
So that's cool. I like Aphra. Aphra is a good character. I would like to see her live action at some point, which I think we might have possibly seen a glimpse of her if the rumors were the case. But and I need to catch up on that last series. I know they're restarting her series again when all this is over with. So cool. May check that out. Who knows? Veteran Marvel Comics inker Juan Velasco dies at 51. Veteran comic book inker Juan Velasco, full name Juan Francisco Velasco Hernandez, perhaps known for his work at Marvel Comics, has passed away. He was 51 years old. News of Velasco's passing was broke on Facebook by his friend and fellow artist George Brake. According to Brake, I'm hoping that's how he pronounces his name. Velasco died in his hometown of Mexico City, Mexico, on April 24th due to complications stemming from an appendicitis operation. This came as a shock to Brake, as Velasco appeared to be in high spirits only days before his passing.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Sad news. I recognize the name Juan Velasco too. So.
Yeah, if let's see, some of his works are Deadpool, Nova, Concepts of Champions, U.S. Avengers. I think that's where I know him, and Champion, that Concepts of Champions ones. Yeah, so this is more recent stuff. Avengers,
Yep.
No Road Home, Shatterstar, and the Magnificent Miss Marvel.
Yep.
So, again, the condolences to his family and friends.
Sad news.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Disney has begun pre-selling reusable masks featuring beloved Star Wars and Pixar characters, including Baby Yoda from the Disney Plus series The Mandalorian, with the CDC recommending the use of face masks to prevent the transmission of COVID-19 and many stores requiring them for entry. Disney has jumped aboard the production train starting around the end of June. It's actually July. Disney will be selling sets of 4 face masks. There's actually Star Wars masks, Disney masks, Disney princess masks, and Marvel masks. Guess which ones Agent _70 already ordered?
One can only guess.
Right.
Yeah,
And
there's a couple of them.
I pre-ordered some for my sister and my niece.
Yeah, part of me was resistant to this stuff. Now it's good that there's stuff that the proceeds are going towards family, or at least $1 of, I guess. Oh wait, so Disney's donating profits up to $1 million from the sales of these masks to MedShare. Okay, so not $1, but $1 million. But there's a couple of these I kind of want.
I ordered one.
Yeah, and outside of that, I actually know people who are doing masks that are probably cheaper than this that I could task if they were so inclined. But I'm not doing it. But we'll see. I know if I end up with one of these masks, you'll know why. But they are available for pre-order now through Shop Disney, and they're expected to ship on June 29th. Which I would say some would say is kind of late, but we don't know that for sure, folks.
No, not at all. I was about to say that was exactly my thinking. I kid you not, your line of thinking paralleled mine exactly. Because I thought the same thing. Like, man, that's not coming for a while, but I might need it then.
Right.
So,
yeah, there's no way in the world it's just gonna be over by next month. All this is gonna be over by next week. I can't think like that.
So. It seems unlikely. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Moving right along.
This is you, Freddy versus Jason.
Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. How the Ultimate Horror Comics crossover happened, which probably should have been in the clickbait section, but whatever. So yeah, in 2003, Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger and Friday the 13th Jason met in a blockbuster horror crossover Freddy vs. Jason. I'm pretty sure none of us covered it at the time. After that film became the highest grossing film in either film franchise, which granted is probably not saying that much for either. It looked set to revitalize both classic horror franchises for a new generation of horror fans, except it didn't. Both franchises got rebooted a few years later by Platinum Dunes, and nothing came of any potential sequels to Freddy vs. Jason. Roll all that in together. Hey, guess what? They made a comic adaptation of said thing and added Ash from The Evil Dead, and I believe it was from Wildstorm Productions and Dynamite put this book out. And I believe that is still out there. Sure. Yeah, didn't take it to film, but it did do it in comics, and there you go. And this article is basically going on as to why it didn't go to film and why it didn't happen to hit comics. So, moving right along.
Next up, writer-artist Judd Winnick is returning to the superhero genre in a big way with his own creator-owned superhero universe, The Mighty, scheduled to launch in summer 2022 from Random House Graphic, follows a 13-year-old girl who discovers how to be the hero her world needs now and the hero she was born to be, according to Publishers Weekly. He's going to be doing The Mighty as well as the Hilo series, and he's apparently decided to forego sleep. So I guess that will be coming out in a year and change, 2022, summer 2022. It's actually 2 years, really.
Yeah. So there you go. My Comic Shop Country documentary tackles the culture and struggles of comic shops. Director Anthony DeSato. My apologies. Desiatos. Yeah, that sounds right. Thank you. Release documentary My Comic Shop Country is a film that aims to highlight brick and mortar comic book stores and the unique culture surrounding them, as well as the challenges they face, like, a certain pandemic that's going on right now. Even in an era where comic book heroes dominate the box office. I think this was probably done before all this happened, though. So, My Comic Shop Country follows Desiato, on a journey that takes him to numerous comic shops across the United States. The documentary features interviews with numerous members of the comic book retail community, including Acme Comics' Lord Retail, Fat Moose Comics' Sean Hendricks, and Amalgam Comics and Coffee House's Ariel Johnson. Cool. And a bunch of other people. We don't have to go through the whole name. And they looks like, and in addition to Mark Waid, who I believe also owns. Doesn't he own? Doesn't he own a shop somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be why. The documentary launched digitally about a month ago. And there's a trailer out there for it. So, and yeah, you can go check it out through Amazon and iTunes if you're so inclined. And
okay, so it's something you have to buy. Okay.
Yeah, or you can probably rent it. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Last up, Dynamite is giving away free comics on Comixology. So this is a slew of #1 issues of Dynamite books. There's a total of 76 items for free for you to download to your Comixology account. Have fun catching up on all these books. They include Lone Ranger books, the James Bond books, the John Wick book, Magnus Robot Fighter, Vampirella, Red Sonja, Turok, the Dinosaur Hunter, the Shadow, the Kiss, as in Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley Kiss. And,
the group, folks, not them actually kissing, unless they do in the course of this book. We don't know.
Exactly. When I mention those names, that's what I'm referring to.
Well, some people, you forget we do have some youngsters in the audience.
Oh, me feeling old. So So bottom line is, feel free to explore the wonderful world of Dynamite comic books with these free offerings on Comixology.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, you can go check that out. And also that being that Comixology is also owned by Amazon, that will fall into your Kindle library if I'm not mistaken. I
Yes, I believe
believe.
so.
Yeah. Um,
It doesn't matter.
I just had to throw it in there, not for anything having to do with that story, but you know.
I was,
Anywho,
hey, I was just like, what was that for?
nothing. I just wanted to throw something in there.
He wanted to use the soundboard, ladies and
You
gentlemen.
know, sometimes you got to, because now you're about to use a soundboard right after you do an ad read.
There you go. So our first ad read of the night, and ladies and gentlemen, I forgot my alcohol downstairs. This one is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a word. Yeah, I am not smuggling alcohol in my water bottle. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today.
And folks, we are going to, there we go, transition. Boy, I should really start using studio mode a little bit more often. Into tonight's topic. If you previously on Comic Book Chronicles, we did the miniseries that ran up to the core series of the Marvel Comics 2006 event, Annihilation, which is a big cosmic event of the time. And here we are going into the core books from the said event, and the last miniseries that is basically an epilogue to it.
Right.
So, as I get back down to the place where I totally can't remember where we were.
Right. So, I mean, essentially, we
Here we go.
are jumping off at Annihilation Day because the first issue of the Annihilation miniseries really goes into detail as to the immediate after effects of the Annihilation wave running roughshod over the positive matter universe. We get, as I open up my handy dandy, not a plug, Marvel Unlimited app to take a look at Annihilation.
Oh shoot! I knew I forgot something. Actually, I do have it open, but whatever.
Oh, you mean the book?
Yeah, because
Oh,
a little behind the scenes, I was actually trying to finish reading part of it before the show.
okay. So ultimately, where we are is you know Stardate, verbal log, Novacore, operative 11249-4496. Richard Ryder, last survivor of the Nova Corps. That's a big spoiler alert, but then you realize that you're going to find out much more about this very soon, like in the next page. So we are being caught up on the events of Annihilation Day and its immediate after effects on the very first page of this story, and we get to the title page, which is a double page splash with the title "Blood and Thunder," and I want to see what the credits are for this book. It's Keith Giffen and Andrea DeVito. Keith Giffen on script, Andrea DeVito on art, and this is solid art. Everything is clean, but at the same time highly detailed, and definitely evokes the cloud of war that has descended upon vast swaths of the positive universe as the annihilation wave has come through. So we find ourselves on a planet Daedalus 5 on the Kree system periphery, and the United Front Command Center with the Commander-in-Chief, Richard Ryder, aka Nova, as well as a different version of Peter Quill, the Star-Lord. Or at least, when I say different version, it's the same character, just different.
It is cool. It's starkly different from definitely the MCU version, or even if you've been a fan of the most recent comic runs, that version.
Right.
So oh yeah, it's worth noting. What was the date on this one? I think it was Annihilation Day plus 208.
Oh, when we joined them on the battlefield?
I believe so. Let me see, because yeah, my notes don't go. My notes didn't put that. Decided not to put that up right in. But let's get a little.
I'm looking at the book now. It actually doesn't give the date. My guess is that it's got to be because the way Nova's notes work, it starts with Annihilation Day, goes to Annihilation Day plus 7, and then it goes to Annihilation Day plus 15-79.
Right.
So we may find ourselves on Annihilation Day plus 80 when we get to this battlefield scene.
No, because 88 was when Ronin came in, and that was still before this. So, but according to what the wiki says, it looks like it's around 204.
Okay.
But there was a little something that happened slightly before that, because I guess around the time before this was happening, Phyla, the daughter of Marvel, went to go visit. And Moondragon, by the way, went to go visit Marvel's grave, and they're attacked by Thanos, who rips off Moondragon's left ear and tells Phyla to go deliver it to Drax while taking Moondragon hostage. For which we find out what happened, why that reason later. On Daedalus 5, the United Front, a universal resistance movement organized by Nova and Peter Quill, to combat the Annihilation wave, managed to hold off in the side, and that's kind of when this is the battle we kind of come in on
right
at the start of this book. So somewhere between 183 and 204 is when this is going on. And yeah, so we get in there, we get the battle between, we get the battle which Nova and Peter and them have to kind of retreat from. And thanks to the leadership skills of one Ronin, who happens to be on the left flank with the other Kree, they are able to pull them out relatively safely, even though they've lost.
Right.
So let me see. Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say what's cool about this is there's a few characters that have sort of star turns. They take center stage at least for a few pages.
Mm-hmm.
One of them being Firelord, and for anyone who played HeroClix, that's a callback.
And sadly,
Fire
not even
Lord.
one that's still going on too. Yeah.
What's that?
I said one that is actually still going on.
Right. I'm talking about first gen.
Right.
Fire Lord was one of the cheesiest characters that people employed because he had they basically played up his range attacks and his speed because he's a former herald of Galactus, and he was very cheaply his value was he was undervalued, let's say. His point total was undervalued for the offensive firepower that he could bring to bear. So he was one of the cheesiest characters out there. So of course, for rookie players like myself, I deployed him all the time. I am very disappointed that Firelord does not have a Marvel Legend figure actually.
Yeah, due time, maybe when they do another cosmic event, which
right.
we're about to do, I would imagine. So I'm just gonna run through the Annihilation Day because my notes are in shambles.
Sure.
So let's see. So we find this out, and as Agent underscore said, we start getting introduced, not introduced, but we get reintroduced to characters, some of which that have been in the miniseries and in various aspects. But we definitely notice, like we said last week, with some of these characters, stark differences between their characterizations to what we know them now as the Den. One of which Gamora, because she and Nova have a little thing going on while the battle's going on, um, which if you've been paying attention to comics for the last few years, that people knew about that, and I think it has even come back up, when Nova came back from the cancer first briefly or whatever. But that's neither here nor there right now. So that happens. Most of the people that from the miniseries are gathered in some way, shape, or form, with the exception of a couple of notable entries, which we will find out later. But like I said, from this front, they have to draw back, and a few days later, on 204, a major offensive is launched by another of Annihilus' queens, Extirpia.
Yes. Extirpia.
Yeah. During the battle, Fire Lord, who we talked about, captures the queen at some expense to himself, because he gets nearly gravely hurt during the course, which he was already kind of hurt because of what was already going on, but during the course of this, he was kind of getting laid into. But he got his person. At the same time, this is when we find out that Galactus and the Silver Surfer are attacked and defeated by Aegis and Tenebris, the two primordial gods that basically attacked them. We find this out during the course of the story because the queen that got captured by Fire Lord told Nova and Quill at the end of issue 1. So,
Right.
and Nova's like, "Oh, they
Uh,
captured Galactus.
I
This
was
is not good."
hold on to that thought. If
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, these two characters were imprisoned in the Kiln,
Mhm.
KYLN, and this was a prison that was on the edge of positive space and the negative zone, which is what did they call it? The breach.
The Crunch.
The crunch. Thank you. I'm sorry. I
Mhm.
knew it was a one-word thing that had a very brief that had a sound like that. So yeah, it was the crunch. So this prison was empowered by the crunch, but when the annihilation wave came through from the negative zone, it basically destroyed the kiln prison and released Tenebris of the darkness and Aegis, she of all sorrows, and these two old gods, you know, um, basically took it to Galactus.
And the Silver Surfer. They crushed him, like, to the point where Silver Surfer was all cracked up because he got
Right.
smacked down by Aegis. So yeah, it went bad for those forces. But we'll see them again at some point soon, I'm sure. Day 206, excuse me, Atlantis Day plus
Hey,
206.
I was about to hold on to that. Hold on to that thought. We just got to add that Thanos is working alongside Annihilus, and it's Thanos' plan that brings Galactus down.
Right, I feel like we might have talked about that last week because this was when we found out during the miniseries that this happened, but we didn't get to the end of that plan until we come into here. So
Right.
yeah, so like you said last week, some of the miniseries, or probably most of them, are kind of required reading prior to coming into the series, because it just kind of jumps, because you never know when the AD starts, or how people come together, and some of the finer points of this events are pretty much laid out there.
Right. I'll give you the perspective of a collector who did not collect all of the precursor miniseries. I got the gist of the story from the Nova and the Silver Surfer miniseries.
Because those
It
were the
would
most of the stuff came out, right?
Right. It would have definitely helped my understanding of the changes to Drax's character if I'd gotten the Drax miniseries, because that's where a lot of that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ronin miniseries, I don't think plays nearly as big a role, but it definitely details what Ronin's motivation is um, going into this miniseries. So I think in terms of the precursor miniseries, I agree that reading them gives you the best idea, the fullest picture of what's going on. But I think you could get by with reading a couple of them. But I think, in hindsight, I wish I'd bought them all.
Right, and even the silver, the Super Scroll one, like his motivations are, that one's also similar to kind of Ronin, where his motivations are kind of played out, but also a crushing defeat by him, and something that happens to his homeworld kind of plays out there, but that also plays into him coming into this, when that point comes in. Let us move on to, like I said, 204, and this is when we found out about the about Galactus and Silver Surfer, like we said. We pushed to plus 206, where we also find
issue number 2 now, I think.
Yes. I feel like this was so I think this next part that I'm about to say was in issue 1.
Which part?
The part about Gamora and Nova being romantically linked.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about issue 2. Once they learn about Galactus being taken down and the Silver Surfer being taken down, that's the end of issue 1.
Right. So we get says that Quill and Nova finds out about this Silver Surfer. Drax reveals to Cammy that he's doing this because he's trying to get close to Thanos, which surprise for him.
That's the beginning of issue 2.
Right, and then we move to a couple of days later, plus 212, where Phyla actually finally gets to Daedalus 5 and delivers Thanos' message to Drax. And he's like, well, I got to go kill Thanos now. So, and it just so happens that some stuff happened in this issue to where, he's going to get a shot. Because Nova and Ronan meets up with the ruling class house of the Kree, House Fierro, not to be confused with Guy Fieri.
Or Pontiac Fiero, a car.
Exactly. But those of a certain vintage will know that car, because I'm pretty sure it's not in production anymore.
I think that's the car that's strapped to a rocket engine in the next Fast and Furious movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was in the trailer. I forgot about that.
Pontiac Fiero.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, boy, we gotta. I still need to watch it. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. We'll
it's a trailer.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. I watched the trailer, but I'm saying I just need to go and finish that up and so we can get to the point. Even though that movie's not coming out until next year. But yeah, so they talk to House Fierro. They attempt to arrest Ronan. Ronan's like, I don't think so, and kills all of them because he found out during the course of his miniseries that they set him up. And this is something of note that House Fierro is a merchant clan and not a war-minded clan. That is going to come into play near the end of this.
All right. I was about to say this plays out very much like this plays out very much like a Game of Thrones, like a D&D type thing where the wrong class of characters are left in power.
Mm-hmm. And I believe because at the same time, Ravenous and crew ends up on Hala, either before or around to this, and so Ronan and Super Skrull are there fighting not only the Kree, which Super Skrull's like, shoot, I'm here for killing Kree, I don't care, and trying to get to the House Fierro, but then the Annihilation wave kind of hits and Ravenous comes through and they end up fighting them. But like I said, that all gets taken care of because oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that was a little bit later. Jesus. Anyway, back on Daedalus 5, Praxagora comes to Daedalus 5 with Super Skrull's body. That's right, because this was before all of that happens.
All right.
But because there was another house another part of the house that is still on Hala that he goes to take care of later on. I forgot about that. This is just the ones that were meeting with him at the time, or them at the time. Anyway, Ravenous comes with his crew and with Pybok, who was from Drax's series, Terax, who they had enslaved, and Delinquent, who was called Infant Terrible, I guess. I don't know who that character is, and looks like one of the Mad Thinker's robots.
Yes.
And a bunch of Centurions from Annihilus' fleet. They all attack the planet. And you know the heroes think they have the upper hand or start to get the upper hand until their big weapon, the analysis big weapon ends up showing itself, and we also get a little bit backstory on how, or a little bit of background information on how the power cosmic kind of operates with the biological beings or not, because
Mm-hmm.
Thanos and Annihilus are talking about it because Annihilus wants the power cosmic, the secrets of the power cosmic, so he can wield it. That was his whole thing with the trying to capture the Heralds of Galactus, which did not work out. But now that they have Galactus and Super Surfer, they've been doing to do some studies. Thanos is like, no, we thought we knew better, but we don't. And once someone is imbued with the power cosmic, things change, and we can't really do that much about it on a biological sense. However, they did. Thanos did come up with a way to basically turn Galactus into a Death Star,
Pretty much.
and use him, and they just happen to come up onto Daedalus 5 to use said weapon, but not before, folks get wind of it at the last second that this is happening.
Right
So, yeah,
here, I was about to say we have just gotten into issue 3 of the miniseries.
pretty much. So, yeah, Ravenous and crew, they're wrecking havoc. Galactus approaches, they do all of that. Nova orders an evacuation. Fire Lord revives the Super Scroll in the midst of all of this because he was laid out, and somehow way Fire Lord's power, who also just woke up himself, um, revitalizes the Super Scroll some kind of way. We don't know
Sure.
comics.
Hold on to that thought.
Sure.
Just click pause on where you are right now. I just wanted to give the listeners and viewers of our show an idea. If they are not reading along just yet, they should be. Bear in mind that we are dealing with some of the most jam-packed, fog of war type pages and panel layouts, and reading orders that you will ever see in like spacefaring comics. In any company, Marvel, DC, Dynamite, Image. There's some intense stuff going on here. There's lots of action going on. So it's definitely a pretty intense read when we get up to what Roddykat is about to describe next.
Yep. And that is so the Galactus Death Star rolls in to the planet. Like I said, they order an evacuation of the planet after having caught wind of this. Redshift and Stardust combine their powers. They end up dying, or quote unquote dying. We don't know even that. They end up trying to stave off the beam until everybody can get clear. A lot of folks don't make it. Well, excuse me, a lot of folks make it. Some folks don't make it, but for the most part, the majority of the people that were on the planet makes it off. Jirax kind of stays behind and to hop on another ship so he can go after Thanos. And yeah, just basically goes onto the ship, kills everybody, and goes to hunt down Thanos. So after this, the group disbands because it's like, well, they weaponized Galactus, so now we've pretty much lost the war. This is when Ronan actually goes to Hala and tries to clean it up from the rest of the House Fierro folks. He takes Super Scroll and Praxagora with him. Obviously, like I said, Super Scroll eager to kill Kree, so it don't really matter. And this is pretty much where we get through to 3.
Yes,
Yeah,
we have
3 or
just
4.
reached the end of issue 3. There's a lot of stuff going on here, folks, but it also reads very quickly because there's lots of action involved. Like I said, fog of war is definitely descended upon these alien planets.
Very much. Annihilation's aid plus 2020. 220. Lord. Drax reaches the third of Annihilus' queens, Eradicate, and kills her, using her vessel to get even closer to Thanos. Nova reaches Earth's moon, and he kind of wonders whether he should tell Earth's champions about what is going on in space. He gets wind of Civil War, which is going on at the same time on Earth, and he and Peter Quill are like, damn, I became Nova because these were my heroes, and now they're fighting amongst each other. but I'm gonna still be Nova because I still hold on to the ideas, even if they are not now. But they also get the plans like, well, we still need to warn them, so they sent message to the Fantastic Four about what's going on because the annihilation wave could potentially reach Earth in weeks.
Right.
So while they're down there having squabbles amongst themselves, thanks Bendis. Um, um, I just had a thought that I don't want to feel like repeating. But anyway, so while they're doing that, we got to still do what we got
Said
to
it
do.
involves Bill Foster. We know.
Yes, Rep Bill Foster. That was not the thought I was thinking of, but yes. God damn it. Anyway, ugh. Anyway, so yeah, anyway, the Learner of Civil War, they have that little talk we just talked about, and there's no way he can get no help, and they double back. I believe this is around the time where Nova's like, okay, I'm just gonna go after Annihilus, because that's got to happen. But in the meantime, Moondragon learns that Thanos wants Annihilus to succeed so that he can rule an empty galaxy. With no opponents to challenge him. Yeah, Thanos basically has Moondragon there to see what Annihilus thinks. He comes to find out that Annihilus is not as big a fool that he thinks, and that the fact that Galactus was turned into a bomb was part of a bigger picture on Galactus on Annihilus's front. But being Thanos, he tries to turn this into his advantage. Thanos reveals that he has no interest in Annihilus' Scream and releases Moondragon from the parasites to use to control her. He then prepares to release Galactus, but Drax arrives and kills Thanos, which means that he couldn't do what he was set not to do.
Hold on. There is a sound effect for this.
Right.
That was running through my head when I read this again. I was like, oh,
right. And mind you, Moondragon, Drax's daughter, was sitting there trying to like, no, stop. This is Thanos is got a plan. He's gonna help. Deal with him after he does what he does, basically. But Thanos, Drax ain't trying to hear this. Moves her out of the way. Just kills Thanos. And like, oh, well, done is done now. And then he decides to ask, well, what was Thanos planning on doing? To which Moondragon actually was like, well, fine, this is what he was going to do. So Drax gets the plan to release Galactus and/or the Silver Surfer, which he does release the Silver Surfer, if I remember correctly.
All right. Pause. Hold that thought, because we are moving into issue number 5. I just wanted to note that before we commence with issue number 5, that when I learned that the Guardians of the Galaxy and the character of Drax was going to be portrayed in live action by Dave Bautista, I honestly was hoping that he was going to be the murderous badass that we saw here. But he was effectively neutered in later issues of, the comics. But I honestly was hoping, because my first introduction, bear in mind, I did not read that first miniseries, so my first introduction to badass knife-wielding Drax was this limited series. So when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced and the characters were brought together and knife-wielding Drax was going to be a main character, I honestly was hoping that we would get this kind of weird amalgam of knife-wielding smart Drax who had less power than his overly muscle-bound form, but was still a powerful character, who still possessed like a good amount of physical strength. He gets punked more often than not in the movies, which is so silly, but what can you do?
Right, he's not even the original form of Drax the Destroyer with the cape and cowl and the eye and the head lasers.
Right.
So yeah, that's that. And yeah, they kind of gone. So before the Drax miniseries, real quick, and I won't take too long with this, but yeah, he was kind of, and I think I said this last week, he was kind of a Hulk type version because of something that happened to him previously.
Right.
Because basically, the smarter the more he fought, the smarter he get, as opposed, because he was like kind of childlike and not as smart, just running around. And But then when he gets into a fight, that's when he starts to smarten up. But that miniseries going into this kind of changed all of that.
Right.
Just wipe that all out.
Right. But I mean, literally, what he does to Thanos in the last few pages of issue 4 is something that definitely requires a good amount of physical prowess, and it's just not something you imagine the Drax character that we know of in the movies doing.
Unless you're a Mortal Kombat character, then you can very much imagine it.
Right.
Because
So,
you can think about what he does then.
Exactly. I just wanted to note that before we moved on to the next issue.
Oh, absolutely.
Issue 5.
So let's see. We talked about that. So yeah. So now that I think this is when we go into Drax kind of going through his plan to release the Silver Surfer and all that kind of stuff. I can't remember. All this is blurring together. So forgive me. But Nova heads deeper into wave control territory, rejoined by Peter Quill and Phyla. They are briefly aided by Blastar and the Space Knights. Yes, of Rom and the Space Knights. But
yes, the Space Knights. This was part of Marvel's attempts to relaunch the Space Knights minus Rom, because they did not own the character. He was, in fact, a Hasbro licensed creation.
So you see a bunch of folks in suits and you don't know who they are, and you see the name Space Knights, and unless you're of a certain vintage, you don't know. You're just like, yeah, it's just some dudes. You might have thought they were Blastar's people. Who knows? Even if you knew who Blastar was at this point. But cutting back to Drax and Galactus, Drax is not able to free Galactus, but he releases the Silver Surfer, who basically uses him to do what Thanos was trying to do and power up the thing to release Galactus. And Galactus gets freed and quite honestly pissed, obviously. But also Drax, this is where Drax is like, hey, make sure you help out my daughter if you do anything else, because I freed you. This is what Drax says to Galactus in the midst of trying to free him.
Right.
That slightly comes to play later, but so yeah, Galactus gets free, destroys all of basically just does a counter annihilation wave, and kills all the wave troops in the nearby forces. And I think this is also when it reaches Hala, where the Super Scroll actually reaches a bunch of places, because we end up getting the shots of people in various places seeing Galactus go nuts. With Silver Surfer like, feel his power! He is coming! He's about to get revenge! He's coming for that behind! Anyway, Super Skrull, Zergor, and Ronan learned that House Fiera brokered a deal with the Annihilation Wave. And this is when he pretty much goes and kills the rest of them, while he's fighting Ronan is fighting Ravenous and the Centurions. But that fight gets dealt with. Ronan kills Ravenous. Excuse me. Also kills the rest of the House Fiero. He also goes to the Supreme Intelligence, who's been held hostage, and frees him from in an act of mercy, because they basically had neutered the Supreme Intelligence, and so now Ronan just put him out of his misery, and Ronan is declared the leader of the Kree world.
Yep, and that is the end of issue number 5.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, let me...
Action-packed stuff, action-packed issues, man.
Yeah, it's worth a read if you have not checked any of this out. So I'm just gonna pop the cover right there of issue 6. And I will also say that this is kind of where my reading kind of fell off, because I got halfway through this book and hadn't, because right before the thing. Anywho, let's see. Nova, Phyla, and Peter Quill also finally reach the center of the Annihilation Wave, and they attack Annihilus himself. As Annihilus overpowers his attackers, he's surprised when the quantum bands fly onto Phyla's wrist, making her the new Quasar in the process, twisting the balance of power. With Annihilus slightly weakened, Nova focuses his power and turns Annihilus inside out and kill him. Thanos and Death witnesses the final battle because Thanos is dead, but he's still with Death. But Nova refuses to join them, clinging to life. So, which means that it's just like Nova had pretty much spent all of his power and was almost near death, but he wasn't going that quickly. And I think
Basically, I was about to say, pause.
sure,
You've reached the end of the war.
yes,
You've reached the end of the war, and now we are at Annihilation Day plus 268, Armistice Day. So if you've made it to this point, you can actually take a breath and go through this next part slowly, because I forgot that this is how Annihilation ended.
mm.
There
Well,
is an armistice. There
right.
is a truce.
So we're gonna go
Call.
back, but we're gonna go back a few dozen days before that, because after the death of Annihilus, I think this might be from the Heralds of Galactus. I'm not sure. Um,
Right.
the parasites controlling Pybok, Terax, and the delinquent are deactivated.
This is from the whatchamacallit. This is from the miniseries. So go ahead. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, but it rolls into Armistice Day. So,
Right.
the three make their escape, causing mass destruction, devastation in the process. They arrive on New Zeron and find it controlled by the Space Parasite. The three assault the Space Parasite with Terax landing the killing blow. Terax then sets out to rebuild his reputation again, and also plus 227 because there's no place like home. Galactus is weakened from his capture and sends Silver Surfer to find a new planet for him to feed. While waiting, reborn Stardust arrives, offering Galactus the energy of his remaining people as a demonstration of his loyalty. Now
Mm-hmm.
we're going to cut to 268.
Yep,
And
that's it.
Armistice
So
Day.
yeah, you basically covered the events of the two Heralds of Galactus issues that comprise the essentially the epilogue
Mhm.
to the story of Annihilation proper.
Yes. Um. Oh wait, is there a little bit more to this? Did I? No, it didn't. Okay, I was about to say what happened here. So Armistice Day. After Annihilus' defeat, the remaining Annihilation Wave forces agree to a treaty that brings the hostilities to an end, but gives the remaining Wave forces all of the Skrull territory and the former Kree capital Kree-Lar. Uh,
Pause.
okay.
Let that sink in, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in. The invading Annihilation Wave basically said, whoa, 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 before we all get killed by Galactus, we'll stop here. Let's sue for peace. And what did they come out of it with? The entirety of the Skrull Empire and the former planet, the former capital of the Kree Empire, Kree-Lar.
Which is
That's
mess.
amazing to me.
And it's also messed up for the if you're the Skrull, because I can't imagine that sit well with Super Skrull. And also the Skrull Empire had been devastated by the wave already, so it
Right.
kind of had already been, you know, just been dusted over.
Right.
So basically it was like, okay, well here's the parting gift of the Skrull Empire and a little bit of Kree, Kree. Here's a Kree planet for you. There we go.
Mm.
So yeah, at this point the Skrulls are without a home, and which granted has nothing to do with at this particular point in time, but it also infers things later on down in Marvel's histories.
Right.
Because in fact, yeah, Secret Invasion. Dang it! See that Secret Invasion? We could be doing Secret Invasion,
Oh no.
but we would probably have to do Civil War because some of that kind of leaks into it. But we won't,
Yep.
or at least not right now. We'll see. Because you will hear that Bill Foster rant again. I promise you. So anyway, Phyla Vel, again daughter of Marvel, decides to use the quantum bands to become the new Quasar and the protector of the universe, defenders of the Earth. And Discreet joins Cammy, who got left behind by Nova and them when they just teleported. So that was another part we didn't actually talk about. When Phyla, Nova, and Peter Quill left the remaining forces that were fighting to go after Annihilus, Cammy was with them for some strange reason, but they used some teleportation device that was kind of using tech from Nova Cortec that was partially still operational. But they left her behind on the planet, so she could have been dead for all we know, but apparently she's still alive
Right.
and joined up with Screet, who was the little fairy-looking person who was running around on Thanos' shoulder at the end of this. Anyway, Annihilation Day plus 274, unless you got something.
No.
Okay.
No. Go ahead.
Firelord refuses the terms of the armistice and sets out to destroy the remaining Centurions, but discovers that the group has rifts in its rank, including some honorable members.
Right. This was in the whatchamacallit, the Heralds of Galactus
Exactly.
epilogue.
Mm-hmm. Annihilation plus 277, a dying extermina gives birth to one final being, Annihilus.
Wait, hold on. And that is the actual end of issue 6. And lastly,
Annihilation Day plus 281, the Silver Surfer confronts and, with extreme effort, manages to destroy Tenebrius and Aegeus, nearly destroying himself in the process. Impressed with his actions, Galactus heals him. So these two people that took down Galactus, took on Galactus and Silver Surfer, just got taken down by the Silver Surfer by himself in an act that was
actually a pretty creative way of doing it. Did you
Yeah.
read it?
No, because I think that was still in.
I don't want to spoil. It was in the Heralds of Galactus issues.
So
when you get around to reading that, now that we've finished, now that you can kind of wrap up your reading of this of the series and read that with some foresight, now that you have basically been spoiled, but it'll still be fun to read the issues just to see how it all happens and see how it's executed.
Mm-hmm.
The way the Silver Surfer is portrayed and the way the story leads to the Silver Surfer winning is actually, you're kind of like, oh, you know what? That works.
Right. Probably something that they got brought up. I'm assuming if I'm thinking something that was probably kind of brought up earlier or at some point in Annihilation that just happened. Like, hey, here's the thing that come back up. I don't know, but we'll find out. I will find out.
You'll be. I hope you're pleasantly surprised. That's all I can say.
I mean, given how they had Silver Surfer and Galactus in here for the most part going into before their capture, like I'll be fine with it.
Yeah.
I suspect good things from it. But there's also a lot of this, I guess we can go ahead and say, because now that we have finished talking about this here event, goes, I think, I'm not sure. Did it actually, because it doesn't seem like it really seeded anything. Well, it did and it didn't. It seeded stuff going into the next adjoined event, that being Annihilation Conquest. Because obviously, there is stuff that comes out here. Well, actually, even with what I know about Conquest, it is definitely taking from here, but not in the way that you would think. Like, it's not like the Skrulls are coming back and trying to go on force. They had other plans. But from what I remember coming out of left field, there's a couple of parties that didn't necessarily have anything to do with this this particular event that come into play then.
Right. But essentially, Conquest, doesn't necessarily come directly after, but it's basically in the wake of the Annihilation wave.
Right.
So, it's pretty closely connected. It's also Annihilation Conquest is I'm looking for the creator behind. I don't know if it's Giffen also. Oh no.
It's Abnett and Lanning.
Yes, Abnett and Lanning.
Mm-hmm. DNA, folks.
Yep.
And I believe that is the event that pretty much bores out the current iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Correct.
So I am actually thinking about reading that.
It's worth it.
Yeah, whether it be for this or just in general, because that was the thing out of Annihilation that I was the most curious about. Because I knew I had to. Well, I probably was worth reading Annihilation to get to that point, because obviously there are some things that happen in Annihilation that that basically infers what going into Conquest. So you kind of needed to read that to kind of get that out of it.
Right.
So yeah, I will probably do that, and I'm not saying that that's going to be our next one. I'm just saying that for myself, you
Right.
know.
And I'm glad, honestly, and I said this last week, and I've say it again this week. I'm glad that my my exhortations, my encouragement, uh, uh, um, of Roddykat to read Annihilation did not disappoint. I'm glad that it was not overhyped. I did not overhype it, so that it seems like Roddykat is, if not pleasantly surprised, at least satisfied in that this was actually a really interesting series.
Yes. I mean, and you got to think about it. Like on the Marvel side, the up to this point, the other cosmic event that we had was Kree Skrull War. I mean, I was barring Secret Wars aside because that's a whole nother thing. But we
Well,
had
there's Operation Galactic Storm, but that's inside Avengers, right?
exactly. But that was my point. It was like, yeah, the stuff that's been in before this point is kind of, still a smaller
Infinity.
scale. Even the Kree Skrull War was kind of a smaller scale to this.
Right, but before this was Infinity Gauntlet, but then that's
Yeah.
just
Right. So,
you know,
but it
it's
still
not an.
stands.
Well, what was cool about this, and like I said, I'm a huge fan of this story. Like I read all these in real time, so I'm just glad that Roddykat's enjoying it. I can say that this was one of the more intense reads when I was reading this in real time as they came out, because as I said, it's a galactic war that you're just not used to seeing in Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm.
Literally like like so many factions, so many sides, and seeing some of the ground forces, as well as the air support, basically, like the Heralds of Galactus doing their part as well,
Right.
and seeing all these cosmic characters being portrayed in such a different light, such a professional light, to be honest. And when I say professional, um, I refer directly to Richard Rider, aka Nova. And this is one of the reasons why I've consistently been offended and taken aback by his characterization in recent years. Obviously, he was in the Cancerverse and whatnot, and they played off of that for certain effect, and they did want to try to push Sam Alexander. But after reading Annihilation, you're like, how could they do Richard Rider so dirty? He's like literally like one of the, like he actually matured into like a leading man role, and then they just like shunted him off into nowhere. They did,
Right.
but I admit they did, do their best, or maybe they didn't do their best, but they at least gave him a shot at several ongoing series until they introduced Sam Alexander as a legacy hero.
Right.
But this is one of the, Annihilation Conquest, and the related books that come after, is the source of my disdain for how they've treated Richard Rider, say for the last like 5 years.
Mm. Right.
You've heard me grumble about it on the show here and there.
Yes.
You know,
Not unlike my Bill Foster rants, but yes.
but now at least Roddykat has some context. Now
True.
he can say, oh, you know what? I know from where he's coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing in that respect. And also, I was like, well, wait, now, just like I said with Contest on Conquest, like now, kind of gotta see how that fall happened, because I'm not have never been the biggest Nova fan, even with
Well,
the
there's
Sam.
I was about to say it doesn't happen in Conquest either. It happens long after that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about just
Right.
like from here to there to there to there. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
But like I said, I've never been the biggest Nova fan, even with the New Warrior stuff, back in the day. But
Same. I was transformed by this series. That's the funny part. Seeing him step up into this like younger leading man, like he's not exactly Captain America. He's going to make a lot more mistakes. He's
right.
not as he's not the winghead Boy Scout, right? But he like he graduates into this like leadership role, something he did not have in the New Warriors, really.
Right.
And it's born out of war out of need. So he has to, step in as the last surviving Nova at this point to, to lead to lead the resistance, to lead the defense of the positive matter universe. So that's why I really, really got, I really developed a healthy respect for the character's growth and transformation in the series, and to see a lot of that kind of get pushed aside or maybe backtracked upon, in recent history is really, it's just kind of disappointing to me. They could really push him as, a leading man type, but they keep falling back on like New Warriors style, New Warriors era characterizations for him.
Right. And even, I guess, well, actually, and I guess to bring us kind of sort of current, because we did see him show up in whatever that one shot was where Night Thrasher was like, hey, you should come with us. He's like, nah, I'm good. I'm staying out in space, or
Yeah.
whatever he's doing. So even now, they were like, and maybe they'll have some plans for him in the future. Who knows? But it's like, no, there was a reason why he's staying out of what's about to happen in Outlawed.
Right. I mean, space. And I guess we can sort of wind down the discussion on this, but I wanted to mention that Marvel space, kind of like DC space, has always had its, it's been popular in phases. There's certain times when people just don't click with the story and it kind of falls out of favor, and then there's something big that happens and everyone jumps back on the space bandwagon. There just has to be the right story being told. The ongoing Silver Surfer stories, Silver Surfer books have pretty much been the only kind of spacefaring stories until the launch of Guardians,
Right.
that kind of kept the space stories going. Those are really the two books that Marvel published that kind of kept the space corner of the universe populated with stories.
Right.
Nova series came and went. Both Richard Rider and Sam Alexander, and combined even. But we've had several iterations of Guardians now, thanks to the popularity of the movie. And the Silver Surfer had a couple series here and there. He did have that one kind of popular run when Slot and All Reds were on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it. So we really haven't had too much Marvel space for a while.
Yeah, and even with that Silver Surfer one, like that was the one, because I think even Slot said it was like, yeah, we're just gonna try to touch on some new branches of space, try to see if.
Right. He was telling his own story.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't trying to tie in with everybody else.
Right. And with with Guardians, like even Guardians kind of came back home to Earth during Civil War II, but they went back out, But still, they even kind of brought them back home and sent them back out, and where they are now, only Al Ewing knows at this point.
Right. So, I just, there's been a couple of didn't they do like an Annihilation, like they revisited the event very recently, or they put a title on something? Hold on, I got it.
Yes, and I was trying to find that.
Hold on, I was just sorting. I just picked up my comics for the 18th, the week of the 18th and the week of the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
I just picked them up. Annihilation Scourge.
Yes,
That's what it was called.
was
I was just looking at the Beta Ray Bill issue that I got. I don't know if if I put it right in front of the camera, you could see it. I think.
Yeah, you got to get him. You got to get behind it. Yeah, there you go. That's kind of that kind of works.
There you go.
There we go. Give a close up on you right there. Yeah.
All right. So Annihilation Scourge is kind of a spin-off, trying to play off of the popularity of the name, but there have been like kind of hit and miss follow-up space stories, but Annihilation, Annihilation Conquest, I think are uh, the really strong stories.
Yep. And oh, it's worth also noting that there was a what if that came out in, I don't know. Yeah, there was a what if that was basically, hey, what if the Annihilation wave reached Earth during the time of Civil War? You can also go check
That
that out
would
if
have
you.
been really interesting.
Yeah, I have never read it, but I'm seeing it here, and I was like, I maybe check
Is
it
it
out.
Unlimited?
Probably. I think a lot of those are what ifs are, because that was around to '08 or something. I'm not sure when this was. Because
Now I'm gonna look it up because I've got Marvel Unlimited. Gonna look it up. Gonna look it up.
But yeah, so you could do that, and let me see. Yeah, but basically it kind of takes up where, that part about where Nova, according to reading this, Nova was real mad about what was going on, finding out what's going on with Civil War.
Oh,
And then it deals with like Drax, and so I think it still kind of stays. It kind of stays on the outskirts. So I mean, it does reach Earth, but I think it does kind of stay within the realm.
what if Annihilation? I see.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so that'll probably be something else to pick up.
Yeah, something to look at. Look at
Oh
that.
wait,
Wow.
Annihilation Scourge was a 6-issue storyline where Annihilus works with Nova, the Fantastic Four, Beta Ray Bill, and Silver Surfer to stop a different invading army, and that was 2019.
Right, that's what I was referring to.
Yes.
That's what I'm holding up. I couldn't remember it because I didn't buy all the issues.
Right, and I don't remember if we talked about it on the show.
We did.
Did we?
We did.
Okay.
Just in passing. It wasn't very
enough,
detailed.
that was not that long ago, so I very much don't
It was
remember it.
passing. Definitely in passing.
Yeah, and that was from November, December. So yeah. But yeah, is there a click of the week? Of
Oh
these
man,
issues?
amongst these issues,
Yeah.
there's so many great ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great issues in this in the 6 issues. Let me see. It's an excellent question. That's an excellent
Having not
question.
read Heralds of Galactus and not finished 6, I can't rightly include either one of those. Although I was halfway through 6, so
I want to say whatchamacallit. I think the issue that I think had like the action pack stuff,
like 2,
probably 4,
yeah,
because that's when Drax takes out Thanos, and you're just like, no, stop, no, wait, oh,
yeah. It's like, well, you just screwed everybody, pal.
yeah, exactly. It's like, that's what I was made to do, and I'm like, really, dude, seriously.
Like, could you have not stopped for a second? Let your daughter tell you what's going on. Like, she's not there.
Right.
She's not gonna steer you wrong.
It's true enough, man. It's true enough. That's
Um,
hysterical. Yeah, I think it's for me. I think I'm gonna go with issue 4 because it's entitled Revelation, and we get to see like everything that is behind, like all of the plans that Annihilus has. Thanos is just like, oh, so this is how I'm gonna double cross him, and then Drax kind of blows it all up sky high. So I think I'm gonna go with issue number 4. And what's great about this is that it's a consistent creative team with Keith Giffen and Andrea DeVito on art, and color art by Laura Villari. I think the 3 of them go through the entire 6-issue run.
Yes.
And it's wonderful to behold.
Yeah, actually, I don't have, because we forgot to do the creative teams for those other ones, but I will say that Abnett and Lanning, who ended up doing Conquest, had done some work on some of the stuff. Oh wait, yeah, they did Nova's series.
Right.
So going to Conquest, you kind of you kind of get where they were going with that, I guess. But for myself, I'm thinking I am going to go with actually two, I believe. Wait, is it two or three? Because it was whenever when yes, when they was like, okay, they got Galactus, he's a weapon now, and they got to leave the planet, and like the two heralds that presumably die, except for only one of them came back, weirdly enough,
Right.
later on. But like, hey, all this stuff's going on, they got to get out. It's basically Empire Strikes Back. They thought they
Right.
lost, So I think it's either two or three that it happens.
It's three.
Yeah.
When Redshift and Stardust, whatchamacallit, are basically holding off um, the beam from the Death Star. I mean Galactus, and and whatchamacallit, and Drax is basically on a suicide run to try to protect Cam. To help them escape,
hmm
to help Cammy and them escape, and yeah. Talk about a desperate escape plan, right? Yeah, no, three.
Three.
So
Yeah.
we're not that far off because you picked three and I picked four because four I thought was like the issue, like I said, entitled Revelation. So three is, like you said, that's a man. Talk about like a fog of war issue, desperate measures it's called.
Right, because if you're reading this at the time and you were like, "Oh no, what's gonna happen?" Obviously, we have we have hindsight on us right now because of all of it being collected right now.
Right.
But yeah, like back then, I could see where you could be like, "Oh, this ain't looking good. How are they gonna
Yeah.
get out of this?" So,
Yeah.
and I kind of like that
It's
kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say it's just such a consistently good series. So I'm very happy that you're enjoying your way through and you're actually enthusiastic about reading the next limited series based on this.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna read Conquest. Like I said, I don't know whether we do it or whether just do it because we still got a couple of weeks before we supposedly get churning back again with new comics. So I mean, and granted, that's still going to be sliding scale because we still don't know. These are projected takes.
Exactly. Remember, if I don't know if they've adjusted the announcements or the scheduling, but new comics are going to be alternating with trade paperbacks or something to try to give stores time to get their feet under themselves. So
Right.
We may be filling in those off weeks with some of these evergreen topics.
Yes.
So,
So
but
we may
anyway,
revisit it. We may not.
glad,
We'll see.
like I said, I'm glad we got to do Annihilation. I'm glad that this was something that, um, as glad as I am that I finally got to read Crisis and to finally understand what the hell produced all the insanity that has come into the DC universe since, and they're still trying to fix Crisis, which is hysterical to me. You know, they're still trying to fix it. They're still recovering from it. But
Right.
to see something like this, where every once in a while, Marvel hits it out of the park with these kind of offbeat miniseries that you don't necessarily know what to expect out of this like cosmic war thing, but it's done so well that this event literally uh, laid the groundwork for so many years of stories that they're still mining it with Annihilation Scourge in 2019.
Right.
So
Which, yeah, and I mean that's kind of been Marvel's MO anyway, because this is not the first time we have seen revisitations of comic events in the last couple of years. Some of that may have been for anniversary reasons, doubtfully, but for other reasons that they're just like, yeah, here we go. We're just gonna pull this
Mhm.
stuff up and revisit it for a second or two. So
Sure.
that,
That's-
but unless you got some final thoughts or anything else you want to bring up.
No, I think that's pretty much it for me. Like I said, I'm just happy that I was happy to read this again,
Mhm.
and I was happy to see uh, that I did not overhype it, and I actually bumped on the fact that they called a truce with the Annihilation Army, even though they killed Annihilus.
Right.
which is just wild to me. So, they're basically, setting up future stories. So I bumped on that because I forgot about it. So I'm glad that um, that I did not remember that, so that I myself am actually kind of curious to read Conquest again to see, how things moved forward again, to kind of refresh the memory.
Right, and I feel like I don't know this for certain, but I feel like some of this, especially with the scroll part, is probably going to play in the Secret Invasion. Even though supposedly that was like kind of laid out well before this or something, I'm not even sure. But I'm kind of slightly curious. Yeah, I don't need. I know I've intentionally never read Secret Invasion, even though I was kind of curious because the books I was reading at the time was kind of leaning into it, like the Avenger stuff. So, and actually, that's kind of worthy of a review. Oh man, Breakout. We should read Breakout. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's like Breakout when the New Avengers with Luke Cage and after
when they formed, break up from the raft.
Right.
Oh
after disassemble, but we probably have to do disassemble first if we were gonna do that. I don't know.
We're gonna discuss all this. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen.
Just thinking out loud while we're sitting here right now. But basically, what I say all that to say that this event kind of makes me want to go seek out stuff just like Conquest and other things from this, because there's things that's coming out of this that's still probably being messed with.
I was about to say, this is an era of comics that, for better or worse, really developed this whole event thing again. There was a lull in events, and then there was a series of quality events that got everyone excited about buying these events again.
Right. And at the same time, we started getting a glut of events around this time or after this time also. So that's
right. Exactly.
Great,
that's the thing. That's the thing. Like you get a couple of good events, all of a sudden there's a glut because they're trying to, capitalize on the momentum that a couple of good events really created.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get things like Dark Reign.
Yeah, and amongst others, we don't, yeah. But that being said, folks, we are at the end of this here Comic Book Chronicles. We do have another ad read, though.
Our last ad read of the night is for Amazon. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or trade paperbacks. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
And as we come to another, the end of another exciting Comic Book Chronicles, thank you for coming out. Thank you for rocking with us. Go check out, if you somehow listened to this one and didn't check out last week's, you probably did yourself a slight disservice, but you are all more than welcome to go back and revisit that stuff if you're that kind of person that does that, which I know I have been that person at times, so can't be mad at you. But nevertheless, companion pieces, that's all I'm saying. That, then this,
right.
Keep pushing. And matter of fact, check out our other stuff, because while we will be back next week, we did some other stuff. We did Creature War, we did Crisis on Infinite Earths. We thought about doing another Crisis. I don't know if we're still gonna do that one next week, but we'll definitely let you know on social media. And with that, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt on Twitter. Pop Culture Net on Twitter. PopCultureNetwork.com and all those umbrella sites therein. And also the Vinyl Alternative Byte, BYTE, under Comic Reviews, no vowels. Tim, DOGG 98, the Osiris that is ish. You can find him at that on Twitter. You can also find him at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find him at CB Cron. Wait, no, he's not at News Nerds Need. That's me. You can find him at The KLIQ Nation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION. Also, TheKliqNation.com. Also, CB Cron, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. Say hey there. We'll all see it at some point, I'm sure. And you can also find him at Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find Stadler and Waldorf.
Well, it was pretty good. Well, it wasn't bad.
On my soundboard, but you can also find them on the Muffets. So, wait, what was that you did?
Hey, boo!
Indeed. But you can also find this here podcast on the Coast Lizard Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
And sorry. You can also find this podcast at your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Coast Lizard SoundCloud page. That's the Cold Slither podcast SoundCloud page, because we don't know if Cold Slither would even have one SoundCloud page. They probably would. Dreadnoughts, they got around. Who knows? Anyway, next week, folks, we stay tuned to the social medias, and we will let you know what we end up popping off then. Until then,
It's gonna be evergreen. It's gonna be evergreen at least for a few more weeks.
Yeah, we got at the very least 2 weeks to do some stuff on, so we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. We'll probably be going back. More than likely, we'll probably be going back to DC though.
We'll
Unless
see.
something else comes up. Yeah.
Yep.
But until then, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes.